Let's start with a cost of benefit summary for our state. 171,000 cut from Tenncare, 328,000 lose health care, 130,000 households lose SNAP, 9 rural hospitals close. Monetarily, Tennessee's economic loss ranges from $29 billion to $35 billion. Rural Tennesseans will be hit especially hard. Rural communities have become older, sicker, and poorer. Benefits for non-farm first to fourth quintiles will be less than $1,000 per year. The subsidies will kick the farmers up to about $1,500 per year, but everybody's benefits will drop by on average about $500 a year for the last 8 years. The fifth quintile in Tennessee, except for a few wealthy outliers, will see about $3,200 per year in benefits. All Tennesseans are going to be subjected to a massive red tape jungle, as Tennessee spends $2.34 billion to avoid it. The $35 billion mentioned earlier will be transferred out of Tennessee. The following derives these cost-benefit conclusions via Tennessee-specific data. Now, all of this is derived in video 1. See the description for a link. It does use Tennessee-specific data also here. And this is a cost-benefit analysis derived from video 1, focusing on the First Congressional District. Here is the First Congressional District. You'll see most of its Tenncare enrollees are children. The One Big Beautiful Bill cuts will remove 20,000 of the 165,000, primarily from increased frequency of verification, reduced provider taxes. See, increased verification requirements removes about 7 to 9% of participants in a benefits program. It's been proven several times. See the first video. So if we're verifying twice a year, then that means participants have to generate the paperwork. The federal tax return can only be used once in that process. The One Big Beautiful Bill cuts are actually due to the administrative overload from new requirements and verifications. This is how the One Big Beautiful Bill manages these massive Medicaid cuts. At least half of those removed will be children. There are some other changes. ACA, an additional 35,000 will lose health care because of that. And then, of course, agriculture and SNAP cuts. There will be some subsidies going to First Tennessee Congressional District farmers, but overall, $656 million loss. Those without health care are 40% more likely to die of medical issues than those with health care. So, the One Big Beautiful Bill is going to cut health care for $55,000 and reduce the economy of First Tennessee by more than $150 million a year. More than 15,000 children will lose nutrition and health care, and there will be unintended consequences. For example, Ballad Health is a regional monopoly created to keep rural hospitals from closing, and it's been successful in doing that. And because of that, mortality rates have dropped in the First Congressional District. But Ballad had a $45 million loss last year and took a direct hit from Helene. So we're projecting, again, see the first video, closure of 1 to 4 rural hospitals. Studies show a 7 to 11% increase in mortality for ambulance travel times over an hour. Mortality rates will increase. There will be many avoidable deaths. Especially vulnerable will be rural seniors and the isolated disabled. And there are more unintended consequences. Ballad is mostly Tennessee, but also has facilities in Virginia. They're really counting on being able to get that Tennessee provider tax rate up to 6%. That's not the way the Senate's heading. Economic decline, SNAP cuts, all of these are unintended consequences. Older, sicker, poorer. Similar for the entire state. See, Tennessee has 14% in poverty, 650,000 with no health care, 30% ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed, 11% of adults below age 65 have a disability, 16.5% are 65 or older, 22% are children. In other words, there are very few able-bodied adults without dependents who are on Tenncare and not working. A study in 2019 found fewer than 6,000. 6,000 was the maximum upper bound. See, we're not lazy in Tennessee, including in the First Tennessee Congressional District. But we're still projecting 171,000 cut from Tenncare, 328,000 lose healthcare, and 130,000 households lose SNAP. The One Big Beautiful Bill impacts on Affordable Care Act will also have many unintended consequences, along with the Medicaid cuts. See, the One Big Beautiful Bill also has increased verification frequencies, increased requirements, and removes automatic re-enrollment. And when you add requirements such as verifying each year, it significantly increases administrative costs for every insurer in Tennessee. See, the One Big Beautiful Bill's goal is to overwhelm the administrative system so people do not get added to Tenncare or SNAP or whatever. To maintain actuarial soundness, all insurers will have to increase premiums and make you fill out forms more often. So every Tennessean should expect higher premiums and more red tape more often. Sometime over the next 10 years, you'll begin to see this ramp up. Some details in the first video. So what about the benefits? Well, the best predictor is your tax returns. Remember 2019, 2020? Well, the goodness you saw then is what is at risk now. But monetarily, the benefits are quite small if you make less than $93,000 a year. For fourth and fifth quintiles, it's better. But 80% of Tennesseans are in the first three quintiles nationally. And there's no taxes on tips or other benefits. And then the upper middle class in Tennessee is really the fourth quintile nationally. 95% of Tennesseans make less than $174,000 a year. So the lower and middle classes in Tennessee should expect less than $1,000 per year in benefits. The upper middle class is going to do better. The First Tennessee District, well, again, the best predictor is go look at your tax returns, how wonderful it was in 2019, 2020. That's what's at risk. But in general, projected is 500 to 1,500. It's a little better than the rest of Tennessee. But all of this is for naught if massive deficit spending leads to runaway inflation. So we're projecting, everybody pretty much, $600 billion deficit increase per year. That's kind of the base. $90 billion for the first three quintiles, $90 billion for the fourth, and $420 billion for the fifth quintile. That's going to give us a $3.7 trillion deficit increase over 10 years. This assumes GDP growth. Why not $6 trillion over 10 years? Well, again, we're assuming revenue growth. And the idea is that revenue growth is going to mean when you add up the actual deficits, the red bars, it's $3.7 trillion. Now, the GOP predicts that it's going to grow faster. The revenue is going to be more than what the CBO predicts. But we're going to have huge deficits initially regardless. Revenue growth cannot offset initial deficits. So huge initial deficits and no cuts, you're going to get inflation like we saw between 2018 and 2023. Which is why Project 2025, DOGE, and One Big Beautiful Bill make massive massive cuts, and add tariff revenue. See, all of these have been cuts, and we have these tariffs that are trying to fill in the extra. So here is our $1.3 trillion in cuts. We're going to have to kick 4.7 million disabled or those with dependents off of Medicaid in this country. We're sacrificing the 5-year farms bill cycle so SNAP cuts can be used to reduce deficits. And there are many unexpected and or unintended consequences. So here was our cost-benefit analysis that we've now established. Huge impacts on Tennessee's vulnerable and Tennessee's finances, leading to thousands of avoidable deaths. And why? Well, the One Big Beautiful Bill is a tax cut bill that makes Medicaid smaller, not better. It's not trying to improve Medicaid. The One Big Beautiful Bill is part of Project 2025, whose stated goal, just read it, is to use huge government cuts to fund tax cuts for the wealthy. So expect it to pass. You see, America voted for Project 2025. The One Big Beautiful Bill and DOGE are simply making it happen.